The hunters were ready to kill. 20 giant white wolves had surrounded a lonely grave deep inside the frozen cemetery. Children screamed. Mothers pulled them back. Bows were raised. No one understood why the most feared wolves in the kingdom were standing around the tomb of the man everyone had called a traitor for the last 10 years. Then something happened that no living soul had ever witnessed. The largest wolf stepped forward. His silver eyes never left the weathered tombstone. Slowly he lowered his head. One after another the remaining 19 wolves did the same. They were not hunting. They were paying respect. At that exact moment a young Omega walked through the cemetery gates, carrying a handful of blue winter flowers. She had come to visit her father's grave, just as she had every year since his death. She expected more insults, more stones, more whispers calling Cedric Ashmoor a coward. Instead she found 20 white wolves guarding him like royal soldiers. The giant wolf turned toward her. For one terrifying moment the entire village believed she was about to die. Instead the impossible happened. The wolf stepped aside. He cleared a path to the grave, as though the cemetery no longer belonged to the living. It belonged to her. What Elara did not know was that the giant white wolf was no ordinary alpha. He was the Alpha King, the most powerful ruler in the north, and he had spent 10 long years searching for the daughter of the man who had once sacrificed everything to save his life. But before he could tell her the truth, fate would strike first. Within days she would stand before her fated mate, only to be rejected before the entire kingdom, before the Alpha King could repay his debt, before the truth about her father could finally be spoken. Someone else decided she had to disappear forever. The first scream shattered the morning before the sun could warm the snow. A flock of black crows burst into the pale sky. Hunters stumbled backward. Women pulled their children close. No one dared breathe. 20 enormous white wolves stood motionless inside Black Pine Cemetery. They formed a perfect circle around a single forgotten grave. Their thick winter coats glistened beneath the falling snow. Their silver eyes were calm, patient, watching. Not one of them looked at the frightened villagers. Not one bared its teeth. Every gaze rested upon the weathered tombstone buried beneath years of ice and silence. The stone carried only one name: Cedric Ashmoor, the man every pack remembered as a traitor, the man every child had been taught to hate. Then the impossible happened. The largest wolf slowly stepped forward. He was unlike the others. His shoulders towered above the pack. Old scars crossed his white fur like fading lightning. His silver eyes held centuries of pain. Without making a sound, he lowered his massive head toward the grave. One by one, every wolf followed. 20 kings of the wild bowed before the tomb of a disgraced man. The cemetery fell silent. Even the wind seemed afraid to interrupt the moment. No one understood what they were witnessing. A hunter finally whispered, "That grave belongs to a traitor." An elderly woman shook her head. "No, animals do not honor liars." Someone else answered with a trembling voice. Then who was Cedric Ashmoor really? No one had an answer. Far beyond the cemetery gate, a young woman slowly climbed the snow-covered path. She carried a small bundle of blue winter flowers wrapped inside faded cloth. Her boots were old. Her gray cloak was patched in many places. Snowflakes settled gently across her long silver blonde hair. Her icy blue eyes looked tired but gentle. This journey had become a yearly tradition. Every winter she walked alone. Every winter she cleaned her father's grave. Every winter the villagers mocked her. Still she came. Elara Ashmoor never missed a single year. As she reached the rusted cemetery gate, she noticed something strange. There were no voices, no children laughing, no birds singing, only silence. Then she saw them, 20 white wolves. For one frozen heartbeat her breath disappeared. The flowers slipped slightly from her fingers. Every story she had ever heard rushed through her mind. White wolves belonged to no ordinary pack. They served only one bloodline, the royal bloodline. Most people never saw even one during their lifetime. Yet 20 stood before her. She should have run. Every instinct told her to turn around. Instead she looked toward her father's grave. The wolves slowly turned their heads. 20 pairs of silver eyes met hers. No growls, no attack, only quiet attention. The largest wolf stepped away from the tombstone. His powerful paws crushed fresh snow as he approached. Every villager held their breath. A little boy cried behind his mother. Hunters raised their bows. The wolf ignored them all. He stopped only a few steps away from Elara. She could hear his breathing. Slow, steady. His silver eyes searched her face as though he had waited years for this moment. Elara swallowed. She wanted to speak, but no words came. Instead, she slowly bent down and picked up the flowers she had almost dropped. With shaking hands, she walked past the giant wolf. He did not stop her. He simply moved aside, making room, allowing her to reach the grave. The villagers stared in disbelief. The wolves had accepted her. Elara knelt before the worn stone. She gently brushed away the fresh snow. The carved letters appeared beneath her fingers. Cedric Ashmoor, beloved father. She smiled through gathering tears. Hello, father. I brought your favorite flowers again. I know they are harder to find every winter, but I promised I would never forget. The cold wind carried her quiet voice through the silent cemetery. You always told me that truth survives longer than lies. I still believe you, even if nobody else does. A tear slipped down her cheek. She carefully placed the blue flowers at the base of the grave. Behind her, every wolf remained perfectly still, watching, guarding, waiting. An old man standing near the gate slowly removed his hat. I have lived 70 years. I have never seen wolves honor anyone like this. Something is wrong. Or perhaps something we believed was wrong. The words spread through the crowd like fire. Questions replaced certainty. Doubt replaced hatred. For the first time in 10 years, people looked at Cedric Ashmoor's grave with uncertainty instead of disgust. Hidden among the trees, a hooded rider watched everything. His face remained hidden beneath dark fur. Only one person stood beside him, a gray-haired warrior wearing ancient royal armor. The old warrior whispered quietly, "My king." She looks exactly like her father. The hooded man never looked away from Elara. His voice was calm but heavy. She has his eyes. She even stands like him. The old warrior lowered his head. Should we tell her the truth today? The man remained silent for a long moment. Snow drifted through the forest between them. Finally he answered, "Not yet. She has already carried enough pain because of my survival. If she learns everything now, she will become the first target of those who murdered her father." The old warrior nodded. "Then our enemies are still watching." The hooded man looked toward the frightened villagers. They never stopped watching. Far below the hood, his silver eyes reflected quiet regret. For 10 long years, he had searched for Cedric's daughter. For 10 years, guilt had followed him like a shadow. Cedric had died protecting him. Yet the world remembered the hero as a traitor. That debt could never truly be repaid. The hooded man slowly turned away. The 20 white wolves immediately followed. Not one looked back. Within moments they disappeared into the snowy forest like ghosts. Only silence remained. The villagers rushed toward the grave the instant the wolves vanished. Questions flew from every direction. "Elara, why did they spare you? Do you know those wolves? Was your father hiding something?" She looked at every frightened face and slowly shook her head. "I know only what my father taught me. He was an honest man, no matter what anyone says." Many laughed. Some looked away in shame. Others remained thoughtful. Deep inside the forest, the hooded rider finally removed his hood. Long black hair fell across heavy shoulders. His silver eyes carried the weight of old promises. He was Draven, the Alpha King of the Northern Moon Kingdom. His gaze remained fixed on the distant cemetery. Then he spoke words no one else could hear. "Cedric, I found your daughter. This time I will protect what you gave your life to save." But neither Kaelin nor Elara noticed another pair of eyes watching from the shadows. Someone hidden among the frozen pines smiled coldly. A quiet voice slipped into the winter wind. "Let the girl live a few more days. Her public humiliation will make our victory far sweeter." And far away across the kingdom, the moonbond ceremony was already being prepared. The ceremony where Elara would finally meet her fated mate. The ceremony that would destroy everything she believed about destiny. The morning after the strange gathering at the cemetery, the entire Black Pine Pack was restless. No one spoke about crops or hunting. No one laughed. Every conversation returned to the same question. Why had the royal white wolves bowed before the grave of Cedric Ashmoor? Some whispered that the old stories had been wrong. Others insisted dark magic had fooled the wolves. But every rumor reached the same place. Elara Ashmoor, the daughter of the man everyone had hated. She felt every stare as she walked through the village. Some eyes carried fear, some carried suspicion, others carried something she had never seen before. Respect. It was small, barely visible, but it was there. She ignored every whisper and continued toward her small wooden cottage at the edge of the forest. Inside the tiny home, everything remained exactly as her father had left it years ago. His old cloak still hung beside the door. His favorite wooden chair still faced the fireplace. His worn hunting knife rested upon the shelf untouched. Elara gently placed fresh firewood into the hearth. The flames slowly came alive. She sat before the warmth and looked at the faded portrait of her father. I wish you were here today. Everything feels different. The wolves knew you. I saw it in their eyes. What truth were you protecting? Silence answered her. Then came 3 heavy knocks on the door. She opened it to find 2 royal messengers dressed in dark blue cloaks, bearing the crest of the Black Pine Pack. The older messenger held out a rolled parchment. Elara Ashmoor, you have been summoned to the moon bond ceremony. Your presence is required before sunset. She accepted the parchment with trembling hands. Every werewolf dreamed of this day. The moon bond ceremony happened only once each generation. It was the sacred gathering where the moon goddess revealed destined mates. Thousands believed that every pain ended once a true mate was found. Even Elara had secretly believed that hope still waited somewhere ahead. After the messengers left, she slowly unfolded the invitation. Her name had been written in silver ink. She closed her eyes. Maybe this was the beginning of a better life. Maybe the years of loneliness were finally ending. She had no idea fate was preparing its cruelest lesson. By sunset, the great ceremonial grounds overflowed with people. Massive stone pillars surrounded the sacred circle. Blue flames danced from ancient braziers. Snow drifted gently through the open sky. Hundreds of alphas, betas, gammas, and omegas filled the arena. Every eye turned toward the center where Alpha Rowan Blackthorn stood waiting. He was tall, confident, dressed in black ceremonial armor trimmed with silver fur. Many young women admired him. Many dreamed of becoming his Luna. Rowan smiled proudly as nobles greeted him. His future looked perfect. Power, respect, influence. Everything he desired stood within reach. Lady Celine Voss watched from the royal platform high above the crowd. Elegant and graceful, her beautiful smile never reached her cold eyes. She leaned toward Rowan as he approached the platform. Remember our agreement. Rowan answered quietly. I have not forgotten. My future belongs to the throne, not to destiny. Celine smiled. Then everything will happen exactly as planned. Far behind the crowd, another figure arrived unnoticed. A tall man wearing a dark traveling cloak. His hood concealed his face. Only his silver eyes remained visible beneath the shadow. Kaelin Draven had come alone. Not as a king. Not as a ruler. Only as a silent witness. He wanted to watch over Cedric Ashmoor's daughter from a distance. Nothing more. The ceremony began. The High Elder stepped into the sacred circle. His voice echoed across the silent gathering. The poisoned arrow left the crossbow without a sound. It cut through the freezing air like a shadow searching for a heart. Elara had taken only 3 steps beyond the sacred circle when something inside Kaelin awakened. His wolf senses caught the faint scent of venom. His eyes flashed toward the highest stone pillar. For a single heartbeat, the world slowed. Snow drifted lazily across the arena. The crowd was still laughing. No one noticed Death racing toward the broken Omega. Kaelin moved. His black cloak whipped behind him as he crossed the distance faster than any ordinary wolf could have imagined. Just as the arrow reached Elara, he struck it from the air with one powerful swing of his arm. The poisoned shaft shattered against the frozen ground. The crowd gasped. Every head turned toward the mysterious stranger who had appeared from nowhere. The assassin cursed beneath his hood. He abandoned the crossbow and vanished across the rooftops before the royal guards understood what had happened. Kaelin kept his hood low. He could not reveal himself. Not yet. His identity was worth kingdoms. If the conspirators discovered he had returned in secret, then years of careful planning would collapse in a single moment. Elara slowly looked toward the broken arrow lying in the snow. Its sharp tip hissed as dark poison melted into the ice. Her heart skipped. Someone had truly wanted her dead. She lifted her eyes toward the hooded man who had saved her. For a brief moment their gazes met. His silver eyes felt strangely familiar. Not familiar because she had seen him before. Familiar because they carried the same quiet sadness she remembered in her father's eyes whenever he spoke about honor. Before she could thank him, he stepped backward into the crowd. Within seconds, he disappeared among hundreds of faces. It was as if he had never been there. The High Elder bent down and examined the shattered arrow. His expression turned pale. Nightshade venom. 1 drop is enough to kill an alpha. Someone planned this carefully. Lady Celine slowly rose from her seat, wearing a perfect mask of concern. How terrible! It seems enemies have entered our sacred ceremony. She looked toward Elara with carefully measured sympathy. Perhaps they mistook the poor girl for someone else. Her voice sounded gentle. Her eyes remained cold. Only Rowan noticed the tiny smile that disappeared from her lips before anyone else could see it. The ceremony ended in confusion. Families hurried home before darkness settled across the mountains. Royal guards searched every corner of the arena. They found nothing. The assassin had vanished. Elara walked alone through the snowy forest path leading back to her cottage. The pain from the broken mate bond still burned inside her chest. Every breath reminded her of Rowan's words. Unworthy. Disgrace. Traitor's daughter. She stopped beside the frozen river where the moon reflected across the ice. For the first time since leaving the ceremony, she allowed herself to cry. Not loudly, not dramatically, only quiet tears that disappeared into the falling snow. I tried my best, Father. I truly did. I never wanted power. I only wanted a place where I belonged. The wind answered with silence. Then another sound reached her ears. Crunch! Crunch! The prison wagon rolled across frozen mountain roads without stopping. Its heavy wooden wheels groaned beneath thick layers of snow, while icy wine slipped through every crack in the old boards. Inside the darkness, Elara slowly opened her eyes. Pain greeted her before memory did. Her head throbbed. Her wrists burned beneath cold iron chains. For a few heartbeats, she did not understand where she was. Then the memories rushed back all at once. The moon bond ceremony, Rowan's rejection, the poisoned arrow, the silent stranger who had saved her, the footsteps behind her in the forest. She closed her eyes. Everything she had known had vanished in a single day. A rough voice came from outside the wagon. The Omega is awake. Another man laughed. Good. She will be worth even more if she arrives alive. Elara quietly pulled against the chains. They did not move. Her fingers had already turned pale from the freezing metal. She forced herself to breathe slowly. Panic would not save her. Her father had always repeated the same lesson. Fear steals the mind before the enemy steals your freedom. Think first. Fight second. She looked around the wagon. 3 other prisoners sat silently against the walls. An elderly healer, a young beta boy no older than 15, and a woman carrying deep scars across both hands. Their eyes met for only a moment before they looked away. The old healer finally whispered, Do not waste your strength. Those chains were forged with moon iron. Even Alpha struggled to break them. Elara gave him a small nod. Thank you. The old man studied her face carefully. You are not an ordinary Omega. I can see it in your eyes. Most prisoners cry. You are searching for a way out. Before Elara could answer, the wagon suddenly stopped. The doors swung open. Blinding daylight flooded inside. Move! The guards dragged every prisoner into a large mountain camp surrounded by wooden walls. Smoke rose from dozens of chimneys. Iron cages lined the frozen ground. Men and women wearing chains carried heavy stones beneath the watch of armed soldiers. Some had hopeless eyes. Others no longer lifted their heads. Elara felt her heart tighten. This was not a prison. It was a place where people disappeared. The slave master stepped onto a wooden platform overlooking the camp. He was a massive man with thick gray hair and a face hardened by cruelty. His voice rolled across the yard. Listen carefully. Your old names are worthless here. You belong to me now. Work hard and you may survive winter. Disobey me, and your bodies will feed the wolves. His laughter echoed across the camp. The guards laughed with him. No one else did. Elara lowered her eyes, but kept listening. Every entrance, every guard, every tower, every weakness. Her father had once taught her how to study a battlefield before taking a single step. She silently counted everything. 4 watchtowers, 2 front gates, 1 hidden supply path leading into the forest, a frozen river beyond the eastern wall. Hope began as observation. Far away inside the northern moon kingdom, Kaelin stood before a massive stone table covered with maps. White wolf warriors surrounded him. Every face carried the same question. Where was Cedric's daughter? A young scout entered the hall and knelt. My king, we found the wagon tracks. They disappeared near Frostfang Pass. Kaelin stepped closer. Did you lose them? The scout shook his head. No. The snow covered the trail. But we found something else. He carefully placed a single white wolf hair upon the table. One of our scouts followed the wagon before returning. The prisoners were taken toward the old slave camps beyond the eastern mountains. Kaelin's silver eyes hardened. Slave camps. Lady Selene has become desperate. General Aldrich looked toward him. Those camps belong to no kingdom. Even kings avoid them. Kaelin slowly rested one hand upon the hilt of his sword. Then perhaps it is time someone reminded them that wolves fear no borders. The white wolf warriors smiled for the first time. Their king had made his decision. Back inside the slave camp, the days passed without mercy. Every sunrise began with frozen labor. Every night ended with exhaustion. Elara carried heavy stone blocks until her shoulders bled beneath rough ropes. She cut frozen wood, fetched icy water, treated wounded prisoners with herbs she secretly gathered during work. Little by little, people began trusting her. The scarred woman introduced herself as Mira. The elderly healer was called Tobias. The young Beta answered only to Finn. Together they survived another day. Then another. Then another. One evening, while the prisoners gathered beside a weak fire, Tobias quietly reached into his torn coat. He removed a tiny cloth bundle. Inside rested several dried herbs. He handed them to Elara. Mix these with pine sap. Spread them over your hands. Your wounds will heal faster. She accepted the gift with grateful eyes. Why are you helping me? The old healer smiled gently. Because your father once saved my life. Elara froze. The fire crackled between them. You knew my father. Tobias nodded slowly. Many years ago, before the world called him a traitor, he rescued my family during the northern famine. He never asked for payment. He simply said kindness always returns. Elara looked into the dancing flames. Almost every memory others carried about Cedric was different from the lies told by the kingdom. Every new story painted him as a man of honor. Then why does everyone hate him? Tobias sighed deeply. Because powerful people needed someone to blame. Truth is dangerous when kingdoms are built upon lies. Those words stayed with Elara long after everyone fell asleep. Late that night, she quietly climbed a rocky hill overlooking the camp. Snow covered everything beyond the walls. The stars stretched endlessly across the dark sky. She whispered toward the heavens. Father, how many secrets did you carry alone? A sudden howl echoed across the mountains. Then another. Then another. Elara slowly stood. The howls were different. Deep. Strong. Ancient. Every prisoner inside the camp looked toward the forest. The guards laughed. Just wolves hunting deer. Go back to sleep. But Elara felt something strange inside her chest. The sound was familiar. Comforting. As though someone had come searching. Hidden among the distant trees, dozens of silver eyes watched the camp. Large white wolves moved silently through the snow without making a single sound. At their front stood Kaelin in his wolf form. His massive white body blended perfectly into the winter landscape. He studied the wooden walls, the guard towers, the patrol routes. Then his gaze found one lonely figure standing upon the rocky hill beneath the stars. Elara. She was alive. Relief swept through him so powerfully that even the wolves behind him sensed it. He wanted to rush forward, break every gate, carry her away from this nightmare. But one sharp scent stopped him. Moon iron. The entire camp had been reinforced with enchanted chains and hidden traps designed to weaken powerful wolves. A reckless attack would kill the prisoners first. Kaelin slowly lowered his head. Not tonight. He would need patience, planning, precision. He turned toward his warriors. Tomorrow we begin. No mistakes. No prisoner left behind. As the white wolves silently disappeared into the darkness, another figure watched them from the top of a distant cliff. Lady Celine's masked commander smiled beneath his hood. Everything is happening exactly as she predicted. The Alpha King has walked into our trap. And this time, he will not leave these mountains alive. The mountains did not forgive the weak. Every sunrise arrived wrapped in bitter wind that sliced through skin like invisible blades. Snow buried yesterday's footprints before anyone could remember where they had walked. Life inside the slave camp became a battle measured one breath at a time. Those who stopped moving disappeared. Those who lost hope became shadows long before death claimed them. Yet something had changed. Elara no longer walked with broken shoulders. She still carried stones. She still obeyed the guards when they watched. But inside her heart a quiet fire had begun to grow. She remembered the wolves. She remembered the stranger with silver eyes. Most of all, she remembered her father's words. Truth survives longer than lies. Every night she repeated those words until they became stronger than fear. The prisoners noticed it too. Whenever someone collapsed, Elara helped them stand. Whenever a child cried, she divided her own bread into smaller pieces. Whenever wounds opened, she searched the mountains for healing herbs hidden beneath the snow. No one ordered her to do these things. She simply could not ignore suffering. Little by little, people stopped calling her the traitor's daughter. They began calling her something else. Hope. One afternoon, the guards forced several prisoners toward the frozen river beyond the eastern cliffs. The ice had cracked beneath a supply bridge during the previous storm. The bridge had to be repaired before another caravan arrived. Heavy logs were dragged across the snow while chains rattled with every exhausted step. Elara worked beside Finn and Mira. The frozen wind burned their faces until they could barely feel them. Without warning, a terrible crack echoed through the valley. One of the support beams snapped. The bridge shook violently. A young prisoner, barely 12 years old, lost his footing. His frightened scream echoed across the cliffs as the ice beneath him shattered. He disappeared into the freezing river. The guards stepped backward instead of forward. One of them laughed. "Forget him. The river will finish the job." The prisoners stood frozen. No one dared move. Everyone knew the water meant certain death. Elara did not think. She ran. She threw herself across the broken ice and reached toward the rushing current. The boy surfaced for only a heartbeat before the freezing water dragged him away again. Elara plunged into the river without hesitation. The cold struck like thousands of knives. Her lungs screamed. Her body begged her to turn back. She ignored every warning. She reached deeper beneath the dark water until her fingers caught the child's arm. With all the strength she had left, she pushed him toward the surface. Above the river, the prisoners rushed forward together. Finn stretched out a long wooden pole. Mira dropped to her knees. Tobias grabbed her waist to keep her from falling into the current. Elara caught the pole with one trembling hand while holding the child with the other. Slowly, painfully, they pulled both of them onto the frozen shore. The little boy coughed violently before bursting into tears. Elara collapsed beside him, unable to feel her own hands. For several long moments, nobody spoke. Even the guards stared in silence. One old prisoner whispered. She risked her own life for someone she never met. The words spread quietly through the workers. Respect replaced hopelessness. The slave master stepped forward. Instead of praising her, he struck her across the face with the back of his glove. "Fool! If you had drowned then, I would have lost valuable property." Elara slowly looked up. Her cheek burned, but she refused to lower her eyes. A strange calm filled her voice. "One day you will learn that people are not property." The slave master's face darkened. He lifted his whip. Before it could fall, another voice interrupted. "Enough!" A richly dressed merchant entered the camp surrounded by armed escorts. His expensive cloak was trimmed with dark wolf fur. Golden rings covered every finger. The slave master immediately bowed. "Lord Marcellus, your arrival honors this camp." The merchant ignored him. His sharp eye settled on Elara. "Interesting. Very interesting." He walked around her slowly, studying every detail. Even soaked in icy water, she carried herself with quiet dignity. Not once had she begged for mercy. Not once had she shown fear. He smiled. "I will purchase this Omega." The slave master frowned. "She has become troublesome." The merchant's smile widened. "Troublesome people are often the most valuable. Name your price." Elara's heart tightened. She had escaped death only to be sold again. But something about the merchant felt different. His eyes were observant. Not cruel. Not hungry, almost as though he searched for something beyond appearance. Far beyond the camp, hidden inside the forest, Kalen watched the exchange through the branches of towering pines. His wolves remained perfectly silent around him. General Aldrich crouched beside his king. We can attack now. Their numbers are smaller today. Kalen slowly shook his head. Not yet. That merchant was not expected. Something is wrong. He watched as Lord Marcellus spoke quietly with the slave master. A heavy leather pouch filled with silver changed hands. Then Elara's chains were unlocked. Instead of returning her freedom, they placed lighter travel restraints upon her wrists. She was being taken somewhere else. Kalen's instincts warned him. The camp had become only one piece of a much larger game. That evening, a small caravan left through the eastern gate. 2 wagons, 8 guards, 1 merchant, 1 Omega. Snow swallowed their tracks almost immediately. Kalen waited until the caravan disappeared beyond the cliffs. Then he turned toward his warriors. Free every remaining prisoner. Leave no chain standing. We follow the girl. The white wolves moved before he finished speaking. They struck like winter itself. Silent, swift, merciless. Within moments, guards collapsed before they could sound alarms. Moon iron locks shattered beneath enchanted blades. Prisoners stared in disbelief as cage after cage swung open. Finn embraced Tobias with tears in his eyes. Mira whispered Elara's name. She had escaped, but she was no longer there. Kalen searched the empty sleeping quarters, where Elara had spent the last weeks. Nothing remained except a folded piece of cloth tucked beneath a rough wooden pillow. He carefully opened it. Inside rested a tiny blue winter flower, dried, fragile, perfectly preserved. The same flower she had carried to her father's grave. A quiet smile touched his face. Even after everything she had suffered, she still protected the memory of the man who raised her. General Aldrich stepped closer. She left in a hurry. Kalen gently closed his hand around the flower. No, he answered softly. She left believing no one was coming for her. That ends tonight. At the same moment, the merchant's caravan reached an abandoned mountain monastery hidden beneath towering cliffs. Ancient stone walls surrounded the forgotten sanctuary. No guards waited outside. Only silence. Lord Marcellus personally opened Elara's wagon door. You are safe here. She looked at him with confusion. Safe? From whom? The merchant smiled sadly. From the people who have hunted your family for the last 10 years. Before Elara could ask another question, an elderly woman wearing pure white robes stepped out of the monastery. The moment she saw Elara, her eyes filled with tears. She slowly whispered words that made the world seem to stop. Welcome home, princess. We have waited for you far longer than you know. The word princess echoed through the silent monastery long after the elderly woman had spoken it. Elara stood frozen beneath the ancient stone archway. Snow drifted gently into the abandoned courtyard. The cold no longer mattered. Her heartbeat drowned out every other sound. She looked from the old woman to Lord Marcellus, then back again. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. You have mistaken me for someone else. I am only Elara Ashmoor, the daughter of a man the world calls a traitor. The elderly woman stepped closer. Time had covered her hair with silver. Fine lines crossed her gentle face, yet her eyes shone with quiet certainty. No, child, you are far more than the world allowed you to become. She reached into the sleeve of her white robe and slowly removed a small silver pendant. It was shaped like a crescent moon embracing a white wolf. The metal was old. Its edges had been worn smooth by countless hands. Elara stared at it without understanding. The old woman carefully placed the pendant in her palm. Your father asked me to protect this until the day I found you. The moment the pendant touched Elara's skin, something strange happened. A soft warmth spread through her hand. A faint silver glow flickered across the ancient carving before disappearing again. Lord Marcellus quietly lowered his head. There can no longer be any doubt. The pendant has accepted her. She carries the true blood. Elara looked at them with disbelief. What blood? What are you talking about? The old woman smiled sadly. Come inside. There are truths that should never be spoken beneath an open sky. The monastery was far older than any castle in the kingdom. Massive stone pillars supported high ceilings covered with faded paintings. Ancient wolves, forgotten kings, moonlit battles, generations lost to history. A warm fire burned inside the great hall. For the first time in many weeks, Elara felt warmth return to her hands. The elderly woman poured herbal tea into wooden cups before sitting across from her. "My name is Mother Lyra. Long before these mountains became forgotten, I served the royal family. Not as a warrior, not as a noble, but as the keeper of their oldest secrets." Elara listened without speaking. Every answer only created more questions. Mother Lyra looked into the fire before continuing. "The kingdom believes your father betrayed the crown. That was the greatest lie ever created. Cedric Ashmoor gave his life protecting the future of every pack. He saved a young Alpha during the Night of Blood, the Alpha who would one day become Kaelan Draven." Elara slowly closed her eyes. The silver-eyed stranger, the wolves, the mysterious respect shown at her father's grave. Everything suddenly began connecting. Mother Lyra continued, "But that was not the only child your father protected that night." Elara looked up sharply. "There was another." Mother Lyra nodded. "A newborn prince, the last true heir to the moon throne. The royal family was betrayed from within. Most were murdered before sunrise. Your father escaped carrying the infant prince in one arm and the wounded young Alpha in the other. He could not save both forever, so he made an impossible choice. He entrusted the prince to those who could hide him. Then he returned to protect the young Alpha. He never came home again." Silence filled the room. Tears slowly rolled down Elara's face. Not from weakness, from pride. For the first time she understood the weight her father had carried alone. Lord Marcellus gently unfolded an old map across the wooden table. "Many people died protecting those secrets. Some became monks, some became merchants, some disappeared into distant kingdoms. We built a quiet network, waiting for the right time. Waiting for you." Elara looked at him with confusion. "Why me? The prince survived. Kaelan survived. What place do I have in all this?" Mother Lyra smiled softly. "Because your father left behind more than memories. He left behind his daughter, the one person he believed possessed his courage, the one person he trusted above everyone else." Outside the monastery, heavy clouds gathered above the mountains. Far below the valley, another traveler approached on horseback. His black cloak was covered with snow. Alpha Rowan Blackthorn pulled his horse to a stop before the ruined outer gate. Weeks had passed since the moon bond ceremony. Yet Elara's final words haunted every sleepless night. "One day you will remember this moment, not because I will beg you to return, but because you will wish you had never let me go." At first Rowan had dismissed those words. Then rumors began spreading across neighboring packs. The traitor's daughter had vanished. Slave camps had been destroyed. White wolves had crossed forbidden borders. The Alpha King himself had disappeared from the capital. Nothing made sense anymore. A royal messenger had arrived that morning, carrying one final piece of news. The body of Elara Ashmoor had never been found. Instead of relief, Rowan felt something unexpected. Regret. It grew heavier every day. He remembered her calm eyes, her quiet strength, the way she had returned his pendant without hatred. He finally admitted the truth to himself. He had rejected an innocent woman, not because she deserved it, because he had been too ambitious to resist Lady Celine's promises. Rowan looked toward the monastery hidden among the cliffs. Something deep inside him whispered that his journey had only begun. Inside the monastery, Mother Lyra led Elara through a narrow passage carved directly into the mountain. The tunnel ended before a pair of enormous stone doors. Ancient wolf carvings covered every inch of the surface. Lord Marcellus placed both hands against the cold stone. The doors slowly opened with a deep rumble. Elara stepped inside. Her breath caught. The chamber stretched farther than she could see. Crystal pillars reflected soft moonlight pouring through hidden openings above. At the center stood a circular pool filled with perfectly still silver water. Around it rested 20 white stone statues of wolves. Every statue faced the pool as though guarding something sacred. Mother Lyra spoke quietly. "This is the Hall of First Moon. No outsider has entered for more than 300 years." Elara slowly approached the silver water. As her reflection appeared upon its surface, another face emerged beside hers. A man, strong, kind, wearing simple leather armor. Cedric, her father, not as she remembered him. Younger, smiling. Elara dropped to her knees. "Father." The reflection spoke without sound. His lips moved gently. "Protect them. Then the image vanished like mist upon the wind. The silver water became still once more. Elara remained frozen. Her tears fell into the sacred pool. The water shimmered. Without warning, every white wolf statue surrounding the chamber began glowing with soft silver light. A deep ancient howl echoed through the mountain itself. Mother Lyra stepped back in shock. It has awakened. Lord Marcellus stared in disbelief. It has never responded to anyone before. Outside the chamber, hidden within the shadows, a young boy watched quietly through a narrow opening. He was no older than 5. Bright silver eyes, dark hair, a small wooden wolf clutched tightly in his hands. He smiled the moment he saw Elara. Then he whispered to himself with innocent certainty, "She finally came. Mother said the guardian would find me." Before anyone could notice him, he slipped silently back into the hidden passages of the monastery. And somewhere beyond the mountains, Kalen and his white wolves were already racing toward the sanctuary, unaware that destiny had reached Elara before he did. 2 paths that had been separated for 10 years were now only hours away from crossing again. Neither of them knew that when they finally met, the truth waiting between them would change the fate of every kingdom forever. The first light of dawn spilled across the snow-covered peaks like liquid gold. The ancient monastery stood in complete silence. Only the distant sound of mountain winds drifted through the stone corridors. Yet beneath that silence, everything had begun to change. Elara had slept only a few hours. Every truth she had learned the night before still echoed inside her heart. Her father had never been a traitor. He had saved the future Alpha King. He had protected the last royal prince. He had died, carrying the weight of an entire kingdom while allowing the world to curse his name. She stepped onto the monastery balcony and looked across the endless mountains. Fresh snow covered every valley. The same world that had once seemed empty now felt filled with hidden stories. She closed her eyes. "Father, I finally understand. You were never protecting yourself. You were protecting everyone else." A quiet voice answered from behind her. "And now that responsibility has reached you." Mother Lyra slowly joined her. The old woman carried a long wooden box wrapped in white cloth. She placed it carefully upon a stone table. "Your father left one final gift. He ordered us never to open it unless you discovered the truth with your own heart." Elara gently lifted the lid. Inside rested a beautifully crafted sword unlike anything she had ever seen. Its blade shimmered with pale silver patterns that looked almost alive. The hilt carried the same crescent moon and white wolf symbol carved into the ancient pendant. Beside the sword lay a folded letter. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the worn parchment. The familiar handwriting instantly brought tears to her eyes. "My little star, if these words ever reach you, then it means you have already suffered more than I ever wanted. Forgive me for every birthday I missed. Forgive me for every lie history told about me. I accepted disgrace so you could one day inherit truth instead of revenge. Never become the kind of person our enemies expect you to be. Strength without mercy creates another tyrant. Power without kindness destroys itself. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. If one day you meet the young Alpha, whose life I chose above my own, then do not hate him. He was only a child. None of this was his fault. Live proudly, not because you carry my name, because you carry your own. Your loving father, Cedric Ashmoor." A tear slipped onto the parchment. Elara pressed the letter against her heart. For years she had believed her father died carrying shame. Now she realized he had died carrying hope. Far below the monastery, hidden among towering pine trees, Kalen and his white wolves finally reached the valley. The massive wolves moved silently through deep snow. Every warrior remained alert. General Aldrich studied the monastery through a small brass spyglass. No guards outside. No patrols. Too quiet. Kalen looked toward the ancient walls. Quiet places often hide the loudest dangers. Before anyone could move, another figure appeared between the trees. Lord Marcellus calmly stepped into their path. He raised both empty hands. "There is no need for blood today." Kalen instantly recognized him. "The merchant from the slave camp. Where is Elara?" Marcellus smiled faintly. "Safe, because I arrived before your enemies." Kalen did not lower his guard. "Prove it." Without another word, Marcellus slowly removed the silver pendant hanging around his neck. It carried the royal seal, known only to a handful of loyal families. Kalen's expression changed immediately. That seal had vanished the night of the massacre. Where did you get that? Your father gave it to mine before he died. We have protected this monastery for generations, waiting for the right moment. That moment has finally arrived. For several long seconds, neither man spoke. Then Kaelin nodded once. Lead the way. Inside the monastery, another unexpected visitor arrived. Alpha Rowan Blackthorn entered through the outer gate alone. His proud armor had disappeared. His royal cloak carried fresh snow and signs of long travel. Mother Lyra met him in the entrance hall. Why have you come? Rowan lowered his head. I came to find Elara. I owe her the truth. Before Mother Lyra could answer, Elara herself stepped into the hallway. She wore simple white robes provided by the monastery. Her silver blonde hair flowed freely across her shoulders. For a moment neither of them spoke. Rowan stared at her as though seeing her for the first time. She looked stronger, calmer, more confident than the frightened Omega he had humiliated before the entire kingdom. His voice grew quiet. You are alive, Elara answered peacefully. That seems to disappoint many people. Pain crossed Rowan's face. Not me. Not anymore. I was wrong. Every day since the ceremony, I have remembered your words. I chose ambition instead of truth. I betrayed the moon goddess. I betrayed you. Please forgive me. The hallway became silent. Elara studied him carefully. Months ago those words would have meant everything. Now they felt strangely empty. She smiled gently. I forgave you long before you arrived. Rowan's eyes filled with hope. Then there is still a chance. She slowly shook her head. Forgiveness is not the same as returning. The woman you rejected no longer exists. She died the day you broke the bond. I survived, but she did not. Those quiet words struck harder than any blade. Rowan lowered his eyes. He finally understood. Some mistakes could never be undone. At that exact moment, a white wolf warrior entered the monastery. My king. Everything is secure. Rowan looked toward the entrance. His breathing stopped. Kaelin Draven walked into the great hall. Every person present instinctively lowered their head. The Alpha King had arrived. Only Elara remained standing. Her eyes met his. For the first time they faced each other without disguises. Recognition flickered between them. The stranger from the ceremony, the man who had saved her life. Kaelin slowly stepped closer. His silver eyes carried years of guilt. You have your father's courage. Elara looked at him quietly. And you have the eyes I remembered. You were there. At the ceremony. Kaelin nodded. I should have stopped everything. I failed you. Elara remained silent for a long moment. Then she asked the question that had lived inside her heart since childhood. Did my father really die protecting you? The great hall fell completely silent. Kaelin slowly removed the black gloves covering his hands. Across both palms, deep scars stretched from wrist to fingertips. He looked down at them before answering. Those scars belonged to your father before they belonged to me. He pushed me through burning gates while enemy blades surrounded us. He stood alone against 30 warriors, so I could escape. When I begged him to run with me, he smiled and said one sentence. Take care of my little star. Kaelin's voice broke. I promised him I would, but I arrived 10 years too late. Elara could no longer hold back her tears. Everything she had wanted to know, since childhood, finally stood before her. She stepped forward. Kaelin expected anger, hatred, blame. Instead she embraced him. Not because he was a king, because he was the last living witness to her father's final moments. Kaelin slowly closed his eyes. For the first time in 10 years, the crushing weight of guilt became just a little lighter. But their reunion lasted only seconds. A terrified young monk burst through the monastery, doors struggling to breathe. Mother Lyra, the hidden tunnels have been opened. The prince is gone. The words froze every heart inside the hall. Mother Lyra's face turned pale. No, that is impossible. Only 5 people know those passages. The young monk shook with fear. Someone wearing our robes took him during the morning prayers. No one realized until now. Kaelin's expression hardened instantly. Seal every exit. Search every chamber. No one leaves this mountain. But another monk stumbled through the entrance before anyone could move. His face was covered with blood. He collapsed onto the stone floor. With his final breath, he whispered only 4 words. Lady Selene found him. Then everything went silent. The monastery that had sheltered secrets for generations suddenly became a place of desperate movement. Stone corridors echoed with hurried footsteps. White wolf warriors raced through hidden passages with drawn swords. Monks lit ancient torches that had not burned for decades. Every doorway, every chamber, every tunnel was searched. Yet the child had vanished as though the mountain itself had swallowed him. Elara stood in the center of the great hall. Her heartbeat pounded against her ribs. She had never met the hidden prince. She had only caught a glimpse of a little boy watching her from the shadows. Yet the thought of him alone in the hands of Lady Selene filled her with a fear she could not explain. Mother Lyra closed her eyes in silent grief. She whispered a prayer before looking toward Kaelin. There is only one path they could have used. The old northern passage. It leads beyond the eastern cliffs. Kaelin nodded. General Aldrich, take half our warriors through the lower valley. I will follow the ridge. If Selene wants the child, then she cannot have reached the main road yet. The White Wolf commander bowed without hesitation. Orders spread through the monastery like wildfire. Within moments, warriors disappeared into the falling snow. Rowan stepped toward Kaelin. Let me ride with you. Kaelin looked at him for several long seconds. You owe the kingdom a debt. Today is your chance to begin paying it. Rowan bowed his head. I will not fail again. Outside the monastery, the storm had grown stronger. Heavy snow danced through the mountain air until the world beyond a few steps disappeared into white silence. Tracks faded almost as soon as they appeared. The kidnappers had chosen the perfect day. But they had forgotten one thing. White wolves did not hunt with their eyes. They hunted with scent. Kaelin knelt beside the tunnel entrance. He closed his eyes. Cold wind carried hundreds of smells through the valley. Pine trees, fresh snow, burning pine resin, fear. Then another scent, a child, and beneath it something darker. Black orchid poison. Lady Selene. His silver eyes opened immediately. North. They rode north. Without another word, Kaelin shifted into his enormous white wolf form. His body stretched with powerful grace. Snow scattered beneath massive paws. The white wolves transformed beside him one after another until an entire pack thundered across the mountain. Elara watched them disappear into the storm. Then she quietly turned toward Mother Lyra. I am coming too. The old woman shook her head. You are still learning the truth about yourself. You cannot fight trained assassins. Elara looked directly into her eyes. My father gave everything to protect that child. If I stay behind, then I betray everything he believed in. Mother Lyra saw Cedric's determination shining through his daughter's eyes. She slowly nodded. Then take this. She handed Elara the silver sword hidden inside the wooden box. Your father carried this blade during the night of blood. May his courage guide your hands. Elara accepted the weapon. The moment her fingers wrapped around the hilt, a warm current rushed through her body. The pale silver markings across the blade began glowing softly. Mother Lyra smiled through tears. The sword has chosen you. Hours later, the mountains echoed with distant wolf howls. Kaelin suddenly stopped at the edge of a frozen cliff. Below him, an abandoned fortress stood half buried beneath snow. Broken towers reached into the gray sky. Ancient walls surrounded a ruined courtyard. Smoke drifted lazily from inside. Someone was there. Rowan joined him moments later. The tracks end here. Kaelin nodded. No. They begin here. The fortress was never abandoned. It was hidden. Far below, inside the crumbling fortress, Prince Aidan sat quietly inside a small stone room. His tiny hands were tied with soft cloth instead of chains. Lady Selene entered wearing a long black cloak. She smiled as though greeting family. You have grown since I last saw you. The little boy looked at her bravely. Mother Lyra said smiling people can still be monsters. Selene laughed softly. Very clever. You truly are your father's son. Aidan frowned. My father is dead. Selene slowly crouched before him. That depends on which father you mean. The boy looked confused. Before she could continue, another masked soldier rushed inside. My lady, the white wolves have found the fortress. Selene stood calmly. Good. Prepare everyone. Tonight the last pieces of a story finally come together. Outside, Kaelin carefully studied the walls. Archers waited along every tower. Hidden traps lined the frozen courtyard. Too many innocent people could die during a direct attack. He turned toward his warriors. No unnecessary bloodshed. Protect the child first. Everything else comes second. Before anyone moved, Elara arrived behind them. Snow covered her white cloak. The silver sword rested across her back. Kaelin's expression darkened. "You should not be here," she answered without fear. "Neither should the child. Yet he is." For one moment Kaelin almost argued. Instead he saw something different. She no longer looked like the frightened Omega from the Moonbond ceremony. She stood with quiet confidence, like someone who had finally discovered who she truly was. Kaelin gave one slow nod. "Stay beside me. Do not leave my sight." She smiled faintly. "Only if you promise the same." The fortress gates suddenly opened. Lady Selene stepped into the courtyard surrounded by dozens of armored warriors. Prince Aidan stood beside her. A blade rested lightly against the child's shoulder. Selene's voice echoed across the snowy valley. "Alpha King, you always arrive exactly where I expect." Kaelin stepped forward. "Release the boy. This ends today." Selene laughed. "No. Today it begins." She looked directly at Elara. "So the little daughter of Cedric Ashmoor finally knows the truth. Tell me, did it make you proud to learn your father died protecting another family instead of his own?" Elara refused to look away. "He protected every innocent life he could. That is why history will remember him long after your name is forgotten." For the first time Selene's smile weakened. Then she clapped her hands once. Two soldiers dragged an old wooden chest into the courtyard. She opened it slowly. Inside lay dozens of letters, ancient journals, royal seals, Cedric's personal belongings, everything he had died trying to protect. Kaelin's breathing stopped. Those documents should have been destroyed years ago. Selene smiled again. "Exactly. Instead I kept them. Because every victory deserves a witness." She lifted one weathered parchment into the air. "With a single torch I can erase every remaining proof of the true royal bloodline. Every sacrifice, every promise, every secret, forever." She lowered the burning flame toward the chest. At that exact second Prince Aidan suddenly bit the hand of the soldier holding him. The man cried out in pain. The little boy broke free and ran through the snow. Selene screamed with rage. "Catch him!" Chaos exploded across the fortress. Arrows filled the sky. White wolves charged through the broken gates. Steel clashed against steel. Snow rose beneath running feet. Kaelin leaped forward like a storm. Elara drew her father's silver sword. Its glowing blade flashed beneath the winter sun. For the first time in her life, she stepped into battle. Not for revenge, not for glory, for truth. Then through the thunder of wolves and warriors another sound echoed across the battlefield. A deep horn, long, ancient, powerful. Every fighter stopped for a single heartbeat. From the western mountains an enormous army appeared. Thousands of white banners waved above endless rows of armored wolves. At their front rode an elderly commander wearing the forgotten royal crest of the First Moon Kingdom. He raised a sword toward the sky and shouted words that shook the valley. "The true kingdom has returned." The cry of the ancient war horn rolled across the frozen valley like the voice of history itself. Every sword stopped. Every wolf turned. Even the fierce mountain wind seemed to fall silent. Across the western ridge, thousands of warriors stood beneath white banners that had not flown for more than 10 years. Each banner carried the silver moon embraced by a white wolf, the forgotten crest of the First Moon Kingdom. For years people believed those loyal soldiers had died during the Night of Blood. They had not died. They had waited. They had hidden. They had protected the final pieces of a kingdom stolen through betrayal. At their front rode an elderly commander with a scar stretching across his weathered face. His armor carried the marks of countless battles. He raised his sword high above his head. "Today we finish the promise we made to Cedric Ashmoor." The army answered with one thunderous roar. "For Cedric! For the true crown! For the kingdom!" The sound echoed from mountain to mountain. Elara stood frozen. Her father's name, the name once spoken with hatred, now thousands of voices honored it with pride. Tears blurred her vision. Kaelin stepped beside her. He smiled quietly. "Your father never fought alone. His friends simply survived long enough to keep his promise." Before another word could be spoken, Lady Selene screamed with fury. "Kill every one of them. Leave no witnesses." Her soldiers rushed forward. The white wolves answered immediately. The frozen valley exploded into movement. Steel crashed against steel. Snow rose beneath pounding feet. The sound of wolves filled the mountains. Kaelin charged through the battlefield like living lightning. No soldier could stand before him. His great white wolf crashed through enemy lines. Every strike of his claws opened a path toward Prince Aidan. Rowan fought beside him without hesitation. Hours earlier he had ridden only to ask forgiveness. Now he fought to earn it. 3 assassins surrounded him at once. He blocked the first blade, turned beneath the second, disarmed the third. The battle tested every lesson he had learned since childhood. But for the first time he was not fighting for ambition. He was fighting because it was right. Across the courtyard, Elara ran toward the burning wooden chest. Flames had already begun climbing through the old letters. Smoke curled into the gray sky. Every document inside carried part of the kingdom's forgotten history. She reached the chest just as another soldier raised a sword. The silver blade her father had left behind met the attack with a sharp ringing sound. The force pushed her backward. Her hands shook. She had never faced an experienced warrior before. The soldier smiled cruelly. You should have stayed an ordinary Omega. Elara remembered her father's letter. Strength without mercy creates another tyrant. She breathed once, steadied herself, then moved. Instead of meeting force with force, she stepped aside. The soldier lost his balance on the icy ground. Before he could recover, she struck the sword from his hands. Her blade stopped against his throat. She did not kill him. Leave. Never raise your weapon against the innocent again. The soldier stared at her in disbelief. He slowly stepped away. Even during war she had chosen mercy. High above the battlefield, Lady Selene watched everything collapse around her. The loyal army had returned. The white wolves had broken her defenses. The prince had escaped. Worst of all, the daughter of Cedric Ashmoor still lived. Her perfect plan had become ashes. She slowly reached beneath her cloak. Hidden there rested a small crystal vial filled with dark crimson liquid, the last gift of desperate people. She smiled coldly. If she could not rule the kingdom, then no one would. She shattered the vial against the frozen ground. Dark mist rushed into the air. Every wolf nearby suddenly howled in agony. Kaelin staggered. His breathing became heavy. General Aldrich fell to one knee. The poison attacked wolf blood itself. Mother Lyra looked toward the spreading cloud with horror. Moon shadow poison. It was forbidden centuries ago. Run. Everyone run. But the poison spread faster than the wind. White wolves collapsed across the valley. Even the loyal army began losing strength. Only Elara remained standing. The silver pendant beneath her clothing suddenly became warm. The sword in her hand shone brighter than ever before. Mother Lyra looked at her with wide eyes. The blood of the Guardians. It protects only one family. Elara did not fully understand. She only knew people were dying around her. She looked toward the silver pool of melting snow beside the fortress. Then she remembered the glowing chamber beneath the monastery, the ancient water, the awakening statues. Without hesitation, she drove her father's sword deep into the frozen ground. Silver light burst across the battlefield. It raced beneath the snow like flowing rivers. Everywhere the light touched, the black poison dissolved into harmless mist. The white wolves slowly stood again. Strength returned to their bodies. The loyal soldiers rose one after another. Lady Selene stared in disbelief. Impossible. That power died with the old bloodline. Mother Lyra smiled through tears. No. It lived inside the daughter of the man who protected it. Selene tried to flee. She never reached the gate. Kaelin stepped into her path. His silver eyes held no anger now. Only justice. It is over. Selene laughed bitterly. You still think killing me changes history. History belongs to whoever survives. Kaelin answered quietly. Then survive your own truth. He ordered his warriors to arrest her alive. The people deserved to hear every crime from her own mouth. By sunset the battle had ended. The surviving nobles, pack leaders, village elders, and warriors gathered within the ancient fortress courtyard. Lady Selene stood in chains before them. The rescued chest rested beside Elara. One by one the forgotten letters were read aloud. Cedric's journal, royal records, witness statements, everything hidden for 10 long years. Every page destroyed another lie. Every sentence restored another piece of truth. When the final letter was finished, complete silence covered the valley. Then the elderly commander slowly walked toward Elara. He knelt before her. One warrior followed, then another, then another. Soon thousands of soldiers knelt together. Not before a queen, not before a princess, before the daughter of the man who had saved them all. Kaelin stepped forward, carrying a beautifully restored royal banner. He planted it firmly into the snow. His voice carried across the mountains. Let every kingdom hear these words. Cedric Ashmoor was never a traitor. He was the greatest guardian our people have ever known. His honor is restored from this day until the end of time. A roar of approval shook the valley. Elara looked toward the evening sky. She imagined her father smiling somewhere beyond the clouds. Then small footsteps hurried across the snow. Prince Aidan ran directly toward her. Without hesitation, he wrapped both arms around her waist. I knew you would come. The little boy looked up with innocent eyes. Will you stay with me now? Elara gently knelt before him. She brushed snow from his dark hair. A warm smile touched her face. Always. Kaelin watched the moment quietly. For years he had carried guilt. Now he finally understood Cedric's final wish. It had never been about revenge. It had always been about protecting hope. As the sun disappeared beyond the White Mountains, another surprise arrived. General Aldrich approached, carrying a small wooden box that had remained sealed since the Night of Blood. He handed it to Kaelin. This belonged to Cedric. He said it should only be opened after the kingdom learned the truth. Kaelin slowly opened the box. Inside rested a tiny carved wooden wolf. Nothing more, nothing less. Attached to it was one final note written in Cedric's familiar hand. If this reaches you, then my little star is no longer alone. Take care of her as family. Because the greatest kingdoms are never built by blood alone. They are built by those who choose to protect one another. Kaelin quietly closed the box. He looked toward Elara. She stood beneath the restored royal banner with Prince Aidan smiling beside her while white wolves surrounded them in peaceful silence. For the first time in many years, the kingdom was no longer ruled by fear. It was finally guided by truth. And deep within every heart that had survived the long winter, one promise remained certain. The name Cedric Ashmoor would never again be remembered with shame. It would be spoken with honor for generations yet to come.